4 deputies take their own lives in about a 6-week period, and we're not allowed to ask questions about it? Man, come on. So when 4 deputies in Texas take their own lives in about a 6-week period, the first thing that comes to your mind, right? If you have logical thinking, skills, you think to yourself, well, what's going on here? Why all of a sudden did 4 deputies take their own lives in such a small amount of time? And all of them unalive themselves by the same exact way. Boom, boom, yeah, like that. So if all of them did that and it all happened in the same way, and we begin to ask questions, they want to silence us. That's right. They don't want the average person, Joe Blow, asking questions. Instead, they want to shut up and be silent. And if they say they all took their own lives, well, they all took their own lives. Here's the thing. Maybe they all did take their own lives. Maybe they didn't. But shouldn't we, as citizens of the United States of America, be able to ask questions and come up with our own conclusions? Listen, they very well may have. But when that happens, the first response shouldn't be like, well, man, they all must have been depressed. The anxiety was too much. What did they see? No, instead, the first thing that starts thinking in my mind, what did all of them hear? Did all 4 of these officers, were they all in the break room at the same time, and did they all hear something that they shouldn't have heard? Or did all 4 of them come across the same person or persons, right, that were involved in something that they shouldn't have seen? Or maybe they came across a file that they shouldn't have read? These are the questions that a logical person starts to think and ask questions about. And I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm saying through the process of elimination and through critical thinking, we should ask these questions so eventually we can draw a logical conclusion. I don't have a lot of information on this case, right? I looked it up. Basically, what you're going to find if you look this up is that they all were either working on the force or they were retired police officers, right? But they were all retired or working on the force in the same exact jurisdiction, in the same area, right? They were all part of the same force, underneath the same management and supervision, right? So did they all unalive themselves? Like I said, allegedly, that's what they say happened, and that is the conclusion that the coroner drew. I'm going to read this article I have from 7 Eyewitness News, and it is the article I'm going to read, and we'll comment it as I go. An article basically says it mentions suicide, and the title says, "A troubling trend, 4 former and current Texas deputies take their own lives in the last 6 weeks," and it's written by news anchor Jessica Wiley, and it was written on Friday, March 28, 2025. And this is what we're going to comment on. Harrison County, Texas. Friends, family, and colleagues gathered to say their final goodbyes on Thursday to Deputy Christina Kohler, a veteran of Texas Harry County Sheriff's Office, whose death last week was ruled a suicide by the county medical examiner. Her passing marks the 4th suicide in just 6 weeks among current and former Harris County deputies, raising concerns about the mental health toll on law enforcement officers. So here's the thing. I do think that there's a mental health crisis, not just throughout America, but throughout the world. People are taking in more information than they ever have at a rate that they never have. In other words, the information that's coming at us is instantaneously. As soon as something happens, as soon as it's reported, we're getting feeds on our Twitter accounts, on our Facebook accounts, on the news. If we're watching TV, because you might be watching a TV show, it'll flash across the bottom of the screen, breaking news, or they might interrupt your show with the breaking news, right? So information is pretty much constant. And if who is they? The media, or the powers that be, or the people that back the media, the bankers, the money suppliers, right? They deem it's necessary for you to know that news instantly. Well, here's the thing. You're going to know that news instantly. So when this information came out, and I remember I seen this on my Facebook feed, or it was on my YouTube, because I do more YouTube than anything else. I saw this, and the first thing that I thought was, dang, 4 deputies killed themselves in 6 weeks. They unalived themselves. What did they see? What did they know? And who did this to them? Now, as you read, you begin to see that the reports are going to say they just basically decided to take their own lives. Continuing with the article, it caught a lot of us by surprise. Jose Lopez, the president of the Harris County Deputies Organization, FOP number 39, said Deputy Cola, 37, was reported missing last week. A public alert was issued by the Houston Police Department, but on March 13th, she was found having taken her own life. Tragically, just 3 days later, 3 days after Miss Cola takes her life, former Harris Deputy Maria Vasquez, who left the department in December. So she left in December. This happens in March. This is only months away from each other, right? Also died by apparent, that's the word to use, by apparent suicide. Earlier this week, another former deputy, William Bozeman, right, another one, was found dead under similar circumstances. And keep in mind what it says earlier this week. So this isn't a small amount of time. One is too many. 2, 3, yes, it's definitely devastating, Lopez said, acknowledging the growing concerns within the department. Lopez has been helping his fellow deputies process the profound grief, I can imagine. Having personally known 2 of the fallen officers for over 2 decades, he understands the depth of the impact of the community. Former Deputy Long Win, 58, died by suicide on February 6, according to the medical examiner. It hits very close to home, and it's a reminder to us how fragile life is. And it's also a reminder we do need to look out for one another. We do need to take care of each other. That's what Lopez said. Dr. Thomas McNeese, the director of the Harris County Sheriff's Office Behavioral Health Division, has been working to provide mental health resources to employees. Established in 2020 under the Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, the division offers peer-to-peer support and functions throughout all operations, McNeese said, acknowledging the significant emotional burden of the profession. Listen, being a police officer definitely can add an extra sense and an extra burden of emotional and even spiritual, dare I say physical, right, grief to any individual who puts on a uniform, no doubt. They're getting called out to scenes of domestic violence. They're pulling up on scenes where somebody was unalived and maybe the body is laying in the middle of the street or inside a home. And they're having to see this stuff. They're having to see children who may be living in the harsh conditions, and they have to go in and deal with the thing and write a report on it. And as they write the report, they find out all kind of other crazy stuff. Listen, I get it. I understand that. So having a mental health network set up to help these police officers is a smart thing. All right, let's finish the article. These last few weeks have been difficult for our staff and the sheriff's office as a whole, McNeese said. This profession, unfortunately, takes a toll on people. And over time, the longer you're in it, the more of a toll it takes. And it changes people. Law enforcement officers and first responders historically experience a high rate of suicide due to the intense pressure and traumatic situations they encounter daily. It's a combination of what they see on the job and what the job entails, McNeese said. Despite the department's ongoing focus on mental health initiatives, Lopez admitted these recent tragedies have prompted tough questions. We can't help but ask the question, is that enough? Do we need to do something different? What else can we do? He said, well, what else that you could do is be truthful. That's what you can do. You could be truthful with the families of each one of these police officers. No matter what the information that you have is, you need to be honest and truthful. We need to be honest and truthful, not just as a society, but as people in general, so we can get the proper answers, so we know how to deal with these circumstances. Man, these things are tough. So that's what I would say to the deputy director. Man, we got to be honest, and you got to be honest. Don't keep nothing hidden or covered up. No matter what any one of these officers may or may not have been involved in, if you have information on something that they were involved in, well, you need to let their families know. You need to let the public know, right? Anyway, let's finish the article. We can't help but ask the question, is that enough? Do we need to do something different? What else can we do? We just covered that. As the community mourns and grasps with the painful loss, McNeese offered an urgent message to anyone struggling with mental health issues. Reaching out, getting some help, doing something to be able to not stay stuck is really important, McNeese said. I agree. If you or someone you know is in crisis, help is available. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline offers confidential support 24/7 at 988 or 1-800-273-TALK. That's 273-TALK-8255. And I think it's important, so I'll put it at the bottom of the screen just in case somebody's watching this and they're struggling with mental health issues. They can call that number and get some professional help. Listen, when I watched this video and when I first saw this news article and I saw 4 police officers had lost their lives due to taking their own lives, the first thing that popped in my mind was, what did they see? What did they hear? What did all of them know? And don't think that it's outside the possibility that if they all knew something that they shouldn't have known, that each one of them got dealt with accordingly. I'm not saying I have information that is factual on my thoughts, but that's just my thoughts. And in America, aren't we still allowed to have our thoughts? Initial thoughts on what we think when we see something? We can ask questions, right? And that's the problem with America now, right? We're not allowed to ask questions no more. The further we go, we're voting for individuals who won't let us ask questions. I want to be able to ask questions so that I can get some answers, so that I can base my conclusions. Man, that's just common sense. What's wrong with us? You saw the same thing happen during the pandemic. You weren't allowed to ask questions. I had a whole bunch of questions. I wasn't against any one thing. I was just trying to figure out what was going on. And if you're trying to figure out what's going on, you start asking questions. When you watch the news and you hear that Biden's attorney, who was a young woman, she unalived herself, the first thing you think was, really? What did she know? When you hear about Obama's cook floating in the water somewhere, you want to know, well, what did he see? You know, he was the cook. He had access to the whole family. What did he come across, right? Oh, but he just drowned. And his wife said that he could swim. Come on, man. And nobody, the mainstream news medias ain't covering that. They're not talking to the cooks who drowned on the Obama's property. You know, they're not asking his wife and interviewing her because you know why? They don't like what she got to say. She probably thinks that her husband didn't drown. And you know what? We have a right to base those conclusions without being silenced. And that's just the problem. Everybody wants a silence. When you notice that they try to suppress any one thing, that's the thing you need to start questioning and looking into. So when I see these 4 police officers, the first thing I think is that maybe they saw something, maybe they didn't. Maybe the coroner is absolutely correct on all 4 of them. But is that the case every time we hear about a high profile or a questionable suicide or somebody taking their own lives? There's a lot of evil in this world, and there's a lot of things that could and can happen. And it's okay for us to question it. Man, that's just my thoughts when I seen flash across the screen 4 deputies take their own lives in a 6-week period. I just start questioning that. What about you? What say you? Do you question stuff like that? Do you think to yourself, maybe there's more to the story? I didn't dig deep and delve deep into this. This is just me just ranting and sharing my thoughts initially when I see this stuff. I haven't taken a deep dive into this. Like I said, they very well could have taken their own lives. And it just be a sad, tragic thing, which is still an issue because it still needs to be addressed that police officers are, if you're a police officer now, man, my hat goes off to you. Like literally, my hat goes off to you. You are doing a phenomenal thing. It's a job that most people wouldn't dare take on. It's a hard job. And I have respect for you. Now, are there bad police officers? Sure, there's bad police officers. No, there's no all good in any one thing. But police officers have a difficult job. And as an ex-convict, I have friends that are police officers. I have people I respect that are cops. You know what I mean? Whether they're former cops or current cops. You know, I know them, right? And we're cool. So there are good cops out there who are really trying to do their job and do the right thing. I'm even friends with ex-correctional officers. And like I said, I was a convict. I got mistreated by some correctional officers. And I had other correctional officers that I look back on and I'm like, man, I ain't got nothing but love for them. They treated me with respect. They just did their job. But they had some, correctional officers that try to hook you up on charges and falsify, documents on you. I seen that too. The world ain't perfect, man. It's okay. The moral of the story, what I'm trying to say, it's okay when you see something, if your brain starts spinning and the gears start moving and you start questioning things and you start picking up on little innuendos that are said or not said, and you start saying, maybe there's more to this. Maybe there's more to this, right? Bing, light bulb. And you start questioning it. But the only problem I have is now when you do that, you're considered a conspiracy theorist. There are conspiracies constantly going on anyway. You know what? Give me a like and subscribe and share with me some things that you may want to talk about, even including conspiracies. Man, let's get it. The pen and the shank.